Welcome in, football fans, or maybe you're just tuning in as a regular college basketball fan that just wants more content. But for you football fans, I want to give you a college basketball update because maybe you've just been, focused in on the gridiron and you're wanting a little update on what has happened in the college basketball world to this point. That's what I'm here for. Now, I got this idea from Mostly Hoops. I saw a tweet last night that they were planning on doing something like that. I don't know what all theirs looked like. I just took some notes. I was like, that's a good idea. Let's talk about this. I saw some people on Twitter saying all this different stuff, like this is what you've missed. I saw Trilly Donovan put a video out. I saw John Rothstein put a video out. Like, this is your welcome to the college basketball world. We welcome you with open arms, and we're very excited for it. We're now less than 5 weeks away from having a bracket in hand, 34 days away from Selection Sunday. So no better time for it. This feels like that time on the sports calendar that all eyes shift to college basketball. Like, there's some good games coming up. Very, very excited about it. But I'm going to give you kind of a broad look back at what we've seen so far in this sport, because it's been amazing. It's been chaos. And even this past weekend, I'll mention a couple of those throughout. Even this past weekend was awesome, but a ton to get to and a ton to talk about. So thank you for tuning in. Jeremy Fears tripping is one of the biggest stories that maybe you've missed if you've been locked in on college or college football and NFL and all this different stuff. And it's really happened within the last couple weeks. I'm buddies with a Michigan fan, and he said he is literally Grayson Allen. And I said, all right. This is the rivalry thing. But then every single game you watch, Jeremy Fears continues to go out and trip the other team and do some dirty plays, kick guys in the no-no square, doing whatever he could do to make it extremely unfortunate for the opponent is basically what he's doing. So he's gone from tripping. I think it was the USC game. He just flat out just landed on a guy's shoulders on purpose. Or no, I think it was the Minnesota game, not USC. But they dropped two straight. They lose to Michigan, Minnesota. Then they're playing a top 5 team, Illinois, at home. Tom Izzo is asked about this whole situation, and he says, I might just end up, benching him and not playing him or not starting him, whatever. That was never going to happen. This is a top 5 matchup in the Breslin Center. The man's going to play. He ends up playing, has a great game, all this different stuff. But there's an argument that this man is the best player, best guard in the country, which makes this even more exciting, I guess, for a neutral fan. Because the last time we saw one of the best players in the country be dirty, it was Grayson Allen. Now, like I said, at the beginning of this, I was like, he's not Grayson Allen. He's a better player, less dirty. But now it's getting to the point where I don't know if that's the case. And if you're a Michigan State fan, obviously you're going to defend it and say, oh, that one was on accident. That one was not he wasn't doing that on purpose. But you got to do that when you have a guy going out there putting up 26 and 15 on Illinois in a top 5 or in a top 10 matchup in the Breslin Center. I mean, you got to defend that guy. So that's been one of the stories of college basketball so far. He's one of the best in the country, has a chance to be a first-team All-American, and he's out there tripping people. He's tripping, he's kicking people, flailing his body all around just to get any advantage possible. That's a story that's been going around this sport for the last few weeks probably. And it's one of those things that you can get away with this stuff, and you can get away with this like little dirty, chippy stuff. Like, I know some players personally that I've seen that just go out and do that, and they get away with it. But the problem is, once these things are brought to light, every single time this happens, it will be noticed and it will be talked about. So that's been one of the stories that I wanted to catch you up on. Another story, and I am personally a Kentucky fan, and I feel like just from looking at people that aren't Kentucky fans talk about it, Kentucky is one of the stories of college basketball so far, because this team makes absolutely zero sense. Kentucky has now won 8 of 9, but the one loss happens to be a 25-point loss in Nashville versus the Vanderbilt Commodores. That's this season in a nutshell. The non-con went terrible. Kentucky did not get many non-con victories that were good. Then they dropped back-to-back 2 games that they choke away at Rupp within a couple weeks. North Carolina, Missouri start 0-2 in SEC play, and then they're off and running. Now, there was a 5-game win streak where it was like, I don't know about these teams. Maybe they're not good. There was one good Tennessee win in there. And then Vandy comes and smacks them in the mouth. But now there's another streak rolling. Going to be ranked in today's poll when it comes out here in 30 minutes. But this team, they get down 15, 16, 17. They were down 14 this past Saturday in the 1996 throwback denims. If you didn't get to see that, highly recommend checking those out. Beautiful uniforms. But down 14 in this one. I think they were down 17 in the last one at Tennessee. And they both come back in those games. And they came back at LSU, and they go to Arkansas and put up a classic. And they go and put Doug Shouse on the map. If you forgot his name, Doug Shouse, well-known college basketball ref, he got his name back out there last week and giving 3 techs in 38 seconds. And ended up, I think the game entirely had 7 techs or flagrants in that game. So he wore out his whistle that night, and that was one of the stories that adds to Kentucky's insane season, is that they go beat their former coach that they ran out of town in Fayetteville. So Kentucky's been absolute chaos, and now they sit a half game back in the SEC with a chance to go take sole ownership in first place in the SEC this Saturday when they travel to Gainesville and play the Florida Gators. Now, I don't personally think that will result in a victory. I'll just be honest. But, you know, there's a chance, and that's a legit world that nobody thought was going to happen. That this team and this fan base and everything, a few weeks ago, wanted this man fired and wanted him canned from his job. Now you're at the point where they just keep winning and winning and winning. That's all you can ask for. And if you look at it, last year was known as a success, kind of as a first-year job. And at the same point in the season, through 24 games, both 17-7, and then that team last year made the Sweet 16. So that remains to be seen for what this team will end up doing. But Kentucky has been chaos, so that's definitely a story that needs talked about. Now, I'll talk about a couple of the games from last weekend. St. John's snaps UConn's 18-game winning streak, now has won 3 straight in the series. Now, St. John's and Rick Pitino, this whole thing is starting to make sense. Like, Zuby Ejiofor is one of the best players in the country. The team is starting to, I feel like, figure it out at the right time. They go out and get a big-time victory, and it obviously snaps UConn's 18-game winning streak that they had going. And honestly, I think it was probably good for UConn. If you can look at a loss in a good perspective, which I know nobody in that fan base will do from this one, but it's a good loss because, like, you kept winning and you kept winning even though you'd play terrible and beat just far inferior opponents. Going out and actually dropping one and realizing, like, oh, this is like a smack in the face. This is a lesson learned. We need to go and lock in and perfect what we're doing and not keep going through the motions and all this different stuff. So St. John's is back. It beats UConn. They will play again at UConn. So it's going to be a fun matchup the next time they play. But this one in MSG, it's always a blast. So big time win for St. John's. Duke and Carolina. Duke led for, I would believe you if you said 99.9% of this game, because I honestly don't think Carolina had a lead unless I'm blanking on the early part of the game, I don't think Carolina had a lead until Seth Trimble hits the 3, which I want to say, perfect guy to hit the 3. I think Hubert Davis was the one that said that. That is a senior that has stuck around for a while. One thing that we don't have in college basketball anymore is just guys sticking around in a program, figuring it out, and making their name known. And now that shot will be played every time that rivalry is highlighted, or when it's previewed next college basketball season, or even this one, it's going to be played before that. So congrats to Seth Trimble on having your name etched in stone when it comes to the history of this rivalry. So Duke and Carolina, obviously those are 2 blue bloods, and this is a controversial topic that I would say I'm probably in the minority, I think, in this. I don't really know. Carolina storming the court is absurd. Now, this is the one instance where I think that they actually would do it. I think if there was any other outcome and they win this game by 10 or something, they are not storming. They're celebrating all this different stuff. But if you're talking about a Duke team that had 1 loss on the year coming into it, and then you had a absolute battle the entire day, and the guy that's the front runner for National Player of the Year, which I'll talk about here in a minute, going down there and ends up choking, I guess you could say, like he ends up not scoring on that final possession, and then you hit a 3 because of Dixon driving and kicking to Trimble. And then it was crazy because it was a double court storm because it was .4 they had to put back on there, and then they throw it and Slim bobbles it and whatever. But this is the one scenario where I think they would. So I think a bunch of college kids and like all of it, like I can kind of understand where it's just like instinct, like I've got to run out there. Now, John Shire starts his post game and says like, hey man, like my assistants got punched, my family, I was worried about them and all this stuff. Nothing's came out since then, so I'm not saying he's a liar, but it's not a great look because nothing's come out from it since then. But big time win for North Carolina. Like this is a big time, resume builder. Like this is obviously a Duke team that's going to be in the national title hunt all year. So being able to get this win, it just felt. I mean, they needed it big time just for the rivalry standpoint of it. And now you have like one of those moments where there's been some Duke buzzer beaters over the years that stand out, but Carolina to be able to get the one in this one and be able to win this game is phenomenal. So big time win for Carolina. I do think you shouldn't storm the court though. I think Kentucky, Carolina, Duke, Kansas should never storm the floor under any circumstance. It's fun. I get that. You all, that same fan base, you can do it in football season. Those four should never storm the court in basketball. That's my opinion. Feel free to sound off in the comments. Now, who can win it all? I mentioned Duke was in that contention. I think there is a list of, how many do I have on here? I have 8. I think there's 8 teams that can win it all. I do think there's probably 2 that are a step above the rest, I would say, which, I mean, if you look at all the analytics and everything, they also suggest the same thing. My list is Arizona, Michigan. Those 2 are the ones that I believe are just above the rest. Then I think it's Duke, Illinois, UConn, Houston, Kansas, and Iowa State. Now, we will see tonight. Kansas has felt like a just trap for some of these teams that have been coming in to Allen Fieldhouse and one of the best environments in the sport. Iowa State went in there, got their first loss. BYU, I know they've lost some outside of that, but it felt like when Darren Peterson was playing, it felt like they were going to win by 2,000 points in that game. Allen Fieldhouse is a scary place to play if you're a team with a low number by your name, and there's none lower than number 1, Arizona, who has started 23-0, who goes to Allen Fieldhouse tonight, 9 o'clock. Can't wait for that one. That one's going to be awesome. Those 2, Arizona and Michigan, I feel like they're above the rest. Michigan feels like they just feel like they're undefeated. They have the 1 loss. Now, big time matchup with Duke soon. Like those are 2 and 3 for me on my list. If I had to power rank the teams that I think could win it, that's 2 and 3. They play soon in MSG. It's going to be awesome. But Arizona, that team is just unbelievable. They are number 1 without a doubt. And there's like, I think there's some analytics that show that Michigan is like better or something. But like Arizona isn't there by default of just a lot of wins, and they're not just like to 23-0 because they just played a bad schedule. They played an absolute gauntlet, and they get to 23-0. Now, their reward, I guess you could say, for that is the hardest stretch of games I think I may have ever seen in a conference in my life. The Oklahoma State game was interesting because it was like, all right, well, they gotta play Oklahoma State. They gotta just figure out how to get through that one, and then they'll kind of be locking in the rest of the way. What are they doing that when they went 84-47? Absolute dominance from start to finish. Now it gets into the meat of the schedule at Kansas tonight, like I mentioned, versus Texas Tech, versus BYU, at Houston, at Baylor, versus Kansas, versus Iowa State. If they can get through the at Houston game, there's legit undefeated talk, which is very, very exclusive territory. I mean, they would be, I believe, the first since the 2015 Kentucky to be able to do that. So, and it's been one of the hardest schedules that you could imagine. I mean, in the non-con, they have wins over Florida, UCLA, UConn, Auburn, Alabama, and now they're rolling through the conference. But I personally don't think they'll make it through all of that. That does not mean that I think they are any lower than top 2. I think they'll end up dropping 1, but they are definitely one of the best in the entire country. So Arizona, super, super deep, and I mean, that's kind of the story with a lot of these teams that I had listed, and they all kind of do it in different ways. Like for Michigan, they have the best front court in the entire country. Duke has the best player in the country. Illinois can just kill you from all over, and now they have this Keaton Walker that nobody expected to be one of the best freshmen in the country, kind of leading the show. UConn can slow it down. They still have their slow, methodical offense that doesn't necessarily have the firepower that it once had, but it's still going to be effective. Nonetheless, Houston's obviously always going to sit down and guard you, but now they can score with you too because of the players that they have. Kansas, not a ton of depth in the world, but they have maybe the best freshman, which I said Cam Boozer is the best player in the country, but I think Darren Peterson, when healthy and when playing, is probably better. Probably the number one pick. And then Iowa State is just like led by super, super talented. I mean, they're not the deepest team in the country either, but super, super talented players. And they have guys that just know exactly what their role is, and they get it done that way. And they also, in their own right, have one of the best players in the entire country in Joshua Jefferson. So it's going to be a lot of fun trying to figure out like what this kind of like season shapes out as. Now, I think outside of that top 8, there's a lot of teams that can beat those teams. Like Michigan State nearly beat Michigan. They didn't end up doing it, but they were close to it. Now, we've obviously seen Carolina beat Duke. No, I don't think North Carolina can win the championship. But I think if they do, I mean, I'd be shocked. But they have the makeup of it, where there's insane talent in Caleb Wilson. There's senior guard leaders. There's I mean, Dixon's a good little guard that they've I feel like came out of nowhere, to me at least, because I thought it would be more of a Kyan Evans guard show. But Derek Dixon has been awesome. They have a great front court. Like that tier behind them, I feel like is just like they can always knock these teams off. They'll always be able to. Now, some of those I don't think that they can go win it. Like Texas Tech, I don't think they can win a national championship. I think they can definitely beat all of these teams in any given point. I mean, Duke, that was their one loss before this one. They've beaten a couple of these teams. So, I don't know. That's my 8. If you disagree, let me know who should be added to that list and whatever in the comments. National Player of the Year race. I said Cam Boozer is the best player in the country. That is exactly what the betting odds and my heart still says. The betting odds suggest that it's Cam Boozer by a landslide, minus 1,200. AJ DeBance is 2nd. Kingston Fleming's 3rd. Joshua Jefferson 4th. Braden Smith 5th. JT Toppin 6th. And then it's kind of, I feel like a longer shot. At that point, it's Keaton Walker, Caleb Wilson, Yaxel Lindeborg, Darius Acuff, Darren Peterson, Tyler Tanner, and then another drop-off. But it's going to be awesome because I think Cam Boozer's kind of running away with it. But say they drop one in Michigan, say they drop another one in conference play, I think things kind of ramp up. And if AJ can kind of fuel BYU to a run here, maybe his odds kind of boost back up. And I think Darren Peterson would be right here in this mix if he was just playing. He just sadly has not been able to play a ton, which is a interesting situation because he's either the most injury-prone player of all time or his agents are holding him back completely. I'm not real sure what it is. But the betting odds suggest that it's Boozer. It feels like he's just kind of running away with it, and as long as he can stay healthy, then he'll get it. And he's just, I mean, if you haven't been able to tap in and watch a ton of him, he's just he can play back to the basket. He also has, I mean, one of the best top of the key 3-point shooters I've ever seen. Like I genuinely don't think he's ever missed one, at least when I've been watching. So he's unbelievable. He can space it. He's stronger than everybody on the court. He's got great length. He can finish around the rim. He's an incredible player. So Cam Boozer is kind of running away with it, but that's kind of the list right outside of him with DeBanza, Flemings, Joshua Jefferson, Braden Smith, JT Toppin, all those guys. Now, maybe if you've been around football and everything, and I would imagine maybe it made its way onto your desk that the freshman class is insane, absolutely silly. That is a understatement. Insane is an understatement. Like the number one team in the entire country with Burries, Pete, and Karchenkov literally start 3 freshmen, and they are absolutely unbelievable. That is the number one team in the entire country that is undefeated, 23-0, 10-0 in Big Ten play. Karchenkov, Pete, Burries. This is just an example of what happened Saturday. Braden Burries had 15-8, 15-8, and he's had games where he's obviously had a whole lot more. Pete 11, 5, 3, Karchenkov 7 and 7. That's the worst you're gonna see them play. It feels like they'll sit down and guard you. They will score in any way possible. They can all score at 3 levels. They're unbelievable. That's just their team. Outside of them, I mentioned Boozer, DeBansa, Peterson, Kingston Flemings, Keaton Wagler, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas, Nate Ament, Michael Brown. Now I'm trying to think of just some more off the top of my head. It's just the class is unbelievable. It is insane how strong this freshman class is. Now, I personally think it is the best freshman class in the history of the sport. I don't remember what game it was I was tuned into the other day, but I think he said it was like the 1979 freshman class maybe was better, and he had said there was like just a ridiculous amount of like Hall of Famers from that group or something, and I don't remember what it was. I will try to do some research on that, but to me, this group right here is the best freshman class of all time. There's never been this many impact on this level. Like, it literally goes, like, you can literally just sit there on a Saturday and go through the entire slate of just noon until, like, this past Saturday. It was a 10:30 tip-off for BYU Houston. And every single game that you turn on is essentially going to be a freshman masterclass being assembled. Like, it's unbelievable how much they impact and what they do. And they are all going to be very, very good NBA players, in my opinion. And that's what's super interesting about this group is, like, I think it's all going to depend on what team ends up with the number 1 pick and stuff. But, like, if you want Darren Peterson, you're going to get one of the best scorers that you've ever seen in the college game. If you go with AJ DeBansa, you're going to get a lengthy wing that can sit down and guard somebody, but can also score at 3 levels and be an absolute spark plug at any moment. Getting Cam Boozer, you're going to get an absolute winner. The dude hasn't lost since, like, middle school, it feels like. And he just absolutely takes over games and just dominates everybody that he plays. And he's more of a back-to-the-basket and true big man. Like, wherever you want to go with all of this, whatever team has the pick, it's going to be, you can't mess it up. That's the craziest thing about this. Is like, you literally cannot mess it up no matter who you go with. And then outside of them, Kingston Flemings is going to be one of the best guards in the league in no time. Keaton Wagler is going to be able to fill it up in the league. And you can just tell because of how they get it done now that they're going to translate and figure it out big time at the next level. And it's going to be awesome to follow. 2 undefeated teams remain. I'm basically using this part of it to talk about 2 other teams that I think just need a shout out if you are new to it. Arizona and Miami, Ohio, they are both undefeated. Now, Miami, Ohio played a terrible schedule, but I tend to believe them in their excuse of why they played that. Some big dogs won't play them, and that's the problem with, like, being a MAC school, being a G5, and being all of them, because it's better now for these top teams like Kentucky and Duke and all these, like, big programs and stuff. It's better to play an absolute dog crap team and beat them by 2,000 points than to play a Miami, Ohio and win by 10. It's better for your resume and what the NCAA uses to be able to judge you when it comes to Selection Sunday and stuff. So nobody will play them. Nobody's going to play a lot of those teams, and I completely I believe their excuse when it comes to that. Now, the MAC isn't great. I believe in a couple of those teams, but they basically have cornered themselves to where they're going to have to go undefeated, and they will have to win the MAC tournament to be able to make the tournament. Like, if they say, just say Akron beats them in the MAC tournament, then I think things get shaky, and maybe Akron gets in as the automatic bid. In Miami, Ohio, that conversation gets pretty interesting because I think a middle-of-the-pack SEC team, middle-of-the-pack ACC team, middle-of-the-pack, any of these top conferences, I think they could beat Miami, Ohio, neutral site right now. They're a good team. They have a lot of great leaders. Like when you watch them, there's not, sometimes there will be, but there's not going to be like one guy that just stands out and like wows you with everything that he does. They all just get it, and they get it done that way. Now, Miami, Ohio, undefeated, but the two teams in the non-Power 5 like world that I think need to be talked about. The mid-majors that stand out, Utah State, St. Louis. Those two are going to be the teams that I think if you're a football fan and you come over and you're like looking around and you're trying to get a grasp for what's going on so far in this college basketball season, and you see Miami, Ohio, and you're like, wait a minute, is that going to be like a Cinderella? Like, should I Wichita State them? Like, take them to the Final Four? Like, what's going on? Don't do that. I'm just going to tell you now, don't do that. But the two that I could see win games and actually do something in March is St. Louis and Utah State. There's a few outside of that, and I know Mountain West is a little bit bigger and better, but like San Diego State, I could see do that. I mean, they already went to the Final Four a few years ago, so it's not bold by saying that. But St. Louis and Utah State need some praise, so I'm here to give it to them. But that's that. That's the college basketball update for you if you are just kind of trying to grasp and figure out what you can figure out about this sport to this point. It's been a lot of fun. Great week of college basketball ahead. So now that the Super Bowl is finished, now that we've seen the Bad Bunny halftime show, now that we've seen all this, let's shift our focus to the world of college basketball. 34 days away from having a bracket in hand. I can't wait for it. Peace.